What an incredible weekend that was. All across our city, Crosspoint stepped out of the building and into the community, serving alongside local schools, nonprofits, outreach partners to bring hope and sharing some love. Way to go, Crosspoint, and it's really good to be back together with you this weekend. So, hey, I'm Eric, and a special welcome to anyone who's joining us for the very first time. We want you to know that Crosspoint is a church where you can be a part of no matter where you live or what you believe about God, because around here, we don't believe church is a building or a place on a map or even a time on a calendar. It's people are living on a movement that Jesus started, and we're a place where it's okay not to have it all together. So whatever brought you here, we're really just glad that you're joining us today. Now, if you're newer to Crosspoint or watching us for the very first time, we'd love to get to know you and help you get connected and involved in the right ways around here. So to do that, scan this QR code and let us know who you are and a little bit about yourself. And if it's your first time with us or your first time filling out this card, we'll send you a gift card for a free coffee in the mail this week just to say thank you for joining us. Now, while you're doing that, a couple things you might be interested in. New or newish to Crosspoint, we want to invite you to our welcome party on Sunday, March 29th, 12:30 p.m. It's a relaxed opportunity to meet our staff, connect with others who are new, learn more about Crosspoint, discover how you can take your next steps here. And if you've been joining us online, this would be a great opportunity to come by, meet some people, connect with our team in person. You can text Welcome Party to 317-834-7373 to RSVP, or let us know on that connection card. March Madness? It's so mad and it's so maddened. It's almost here. And we're turning the Crosspoint Commons into the ultimate watch party. Join us Thursday. We're keeping this in here. Join us Thursday, March 19th for our March Madness viewing party, sponsored by the Commons at Crosspoint. Grab your team or coworkers and join us here at the Commons for games on the screens and free Ale Emporium appetizers throughout the day. You can watch, work, or just hang out with your fellow fans if you want. Stick around for the Thursday early weekend services. Our March Madness after party is also going to be happening that night after that Thursday service. Now, one of the biggest things that happens around here all year is Easter at Crosspoint. Is just 3 weeks away, and there are lots of ways to connect. If you want to sleep in on Easter, go for it and join us for the Thursday early weekend service on April 2nd. We'll also have 2 Sunday Easter services on April 5th, and you can watch online all throughout the course of the week. Now start making your plans to be with us and think about who you might invite to sit with you or watch with you. Easter is a great weekend to invite someone. One of the things that makes Easter at Crosspoint so special is ordinary people like you helping others have a great experience. There are opportunities to serve coffee, welcome guests at the doors, or help with Crosspoint kids as the next generation learns what it means to know and follow Jesus. Our goal is that every person who walks through the door feels welcome, and you can be a part of that. Let us know if you'd like to help. And if Easter isn't exciting enough, we'll also be celebrating water baptisms in all of our Easter services. If you're interested in taking this next step in your faith journey, we'd love to celebrate that moment with you. Just scan the QR code or let us know on the digital connection card. All right, we've got a great service today. The best relationships and marriages don't just improve life, they shape who we become. But what if the real question isn't finding the perfect person, but becoming the right kind of person? Before we hear from Curt, this next song reminds us that the people closest to us often shape the people we're becoming. Check out this song from the band.
On the dark side of the earth, where the creatures are out, I'm a man on the moon. Midnight round my neck, sunrise on my breath, I still wait for you. Will you lay down all the things you've done? Don't turn that face around, you can't come undone. Well, hey, did you call, did you fall, do you need someone? Do you need someone? And hey, I'm a mess myself, but I think I could be someone. If you need someone, when I was alone I was fine. I could deny a lie, I could just push back and make Out of sight, out of mind, never raised the alarms. Yeah, I'm just like you. Would you lay down all the things you've done? Don't turn that face around, you can't come undone. Well, hey, did you call, did you fall, do you need someone, do you need someone? And hey, I'm a mess myself, but I think I could be someone. If you need someone, when I was alone I was fine. I could deny a lie, I could just push back and make believe that it was all right. But hey, when you call, when you fall, when you need someone, I could be someone for you. Tell the lie, see the light, burn a bridge, it'll be alright. Things don't have to fall apart. And wait, did you call, did you fall, do you need someone, do you need someone? And hey, I'm a mess myself, but I think I could be someone. If you need someone, when I was alone I was fine. I could deny a lie, I could just push back and make believe that it was alright. But hey, when you call, when you fall, when you need someone, I can be someone for you.
Oh man, some new songs from Mumford right there. Yeah, that's so good. And we're going to be talking about that. You know, there's a lot of times when we fall and you want to know that the people that are closest to you are going to be right there around you. So, hey, welcome to Crosspoint. Really excited to be with you this weekend and good to see you. My name's Curt, and it's good to be back. Last weekend we were off for Churches Left the Building, and I missed you guys. It was kind of a weird week, but so much good work and good that was brought out into the community that was so cool to see. And so really good to be back. And if you're here for the first time this weekend, we are super excited to have you here with us. And let's make some noise for our online crowd this weekend. We got a whole bunch of people joining us through the online spaces, and whether you're tuning in from your dorm room, maybe you're on spring break this weekend, or I don't know, your living room, maybe you're still in bed. We just are really excited you've chosen to join us. Now, we are in week 4 of this series called Navigating Us, and we've been looking at some of the key relationships in our life, and we're going to continue to look at those, specifically the bonding relationships, the ones that, the people that are with us and for us, and the ones that we want to go deeper. And so this weekend, in a moment, we're going to take a look at the marriage relationship. Next weekend, we're going to look at the next generation, and so that's going to include parenting and raising up the next generation. Now, for some of you, if you're single, you just heard me say that, oh gosh, this is not for me this weekend. I think I'm going to check out. Don't do that. Because what we're going to say this weekend about marriage really applies to all of our significant relationships. And honestly, if you're a student, if you're single, if you're divorced, single again, wherever you are, there's so much here as we think about what this means for all of our relationships in life, and even for our married relationships. And so we live in a culture that's really twisted when it comes to love. And honestly, I think we really have kind of twisted what marriage is. And the problem is, for a lot of us, we grew up with it. And so it's kind of always been this way. So we don't even think about it or realize there's perhaps something different that God has in store. And so I really hope to maybe help us open up our understanding to God's design. And I hope we might be open to that this weekend. And that many of us actually might make, a significant upgrade. And when I say upgrade, you're like, well, I know what that is. I like upgrades, right? We all like upgrades. In fact, my wife and I were traveling a couple months ago, and on our way back to Indianapolis, we went, we're getting ready to board our flight, and they said, hey, Mr. Walters, you've got an upgrade. And I'm like, oh, I like upgrades. And they said, it's only $125. And so I didn't like that. I thought it was like a free upgrade. But immediately I started doing the math. I'm like, well, that could be kind of cool. I'm tired, and maybe, I was picturing this right here. I was picturing like a pod, They're like, no, that's not what we're talking about. It's more like this one right here. Like just a little extra room, $125. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to pass on that. I wasn't interested in paying for that upgrade right there. But the upgrade that we're going to talk about this weekend is one that's free. And I just think in our culture, we've really kind of downgraded this experience. And so I want to give us a picture of this. And so when I talk about upgrade, when it comes to marriage, you might be thinking, oh man, that means I'm going to get happier. I'm going to learn how to have like a happy life and a happy marriage, which, that could happen, but that's really not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about something actually much more profound than that. Now, before we kind of dig into that, there's another important thing that I just want to acknowledge right off the bat, and that's that, marriage is not for everyone. And this is so important because it's kind of like become an American way, and honestly, there's kind of like this whole weird Christian subculture. I don't really like how this subculture drives this, but it's this idea that like if you're a Christian, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you're going to raise a family, and if you're not doing that, like if you don't fit that, like you're not complete. All right, so I just want you to know that's not a biblical idea at all. Like we don't find that anywhere in Scripture. And so now marriage is wonderful, all right, but so is singleness. And the Apostle Paul, in fact, he's a guy that wrote more than half of the New Testament in the Bible. This is a guy we refer to all the time. He was single his whole life, and yet he had a complete life. In fact, I want to read to you something he said in a letter to the Corinthians. He said, I wish everyone were single just as I am. Yeah, each person has a special gift from God of one kind or another. So he's pretty much like, hey, marriage is meant to be a gift, but singleness is also meant to be a gift. He goes, so I say to those who aren't, married, and to the widows, it's better. Think about this. He says, it's better to stay unmarried just as I am. Now, there was a lot going on in the world in the first century right there. And he's like writing this to the Corinthian church, and they're going through a difficult time. And part of why he's saying this, I think he's kind of like, hey, in light of everything going on, I don't know that this is a time to like change your status. All right. But some of the things he's saying right here are actually still, relevant to singleness like any time. Meaning, like, you're going to be able to be more focused. You're going to have less worries. You're going to be able to focus more on God and His kingdom, what it means to be a part of that. And so there's advantages to marriage. There's advantages, to no marriage. You don't have to be married to be complete. And that's kind of the point of what I just wanted to lift out here. A man or a woman's not going to complete you. And I know we have Jerry Maguire, right? We have this right here.
You complete me.
We're like, oh, like every wedding I do that, like I want that in my wedding. I'm like, it's cool, but it's not true, all right? It's just not true. And so, in fact, if we go into marriage thinking that like the person I'm marrying is going to complete me, listen, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to both be really, really disappointed because the only relationship that actually has the ability to complete us is a relationship with Jesus. And that's actually the relationship that completes us. That's the one that transforms us. That's the one that brings this, lifelong, ongoing healing to the broken, fractured, wounded, the places where we feel like we're not fully complete. That's where that actually begins to take place. And so if you're single and you think, man, if I just can marry somebody, it's going to complete me, that's a bad idea. But I will tell you, if you go into marriage saying, well, I know Jesus is the one that actually does that, and it is a lifelong process, and you enter into marriage with that perspective, you're going to have a much healthier marriage, and you're going to enjoy life, and you're not going to have all these misplaced expectations. And so all that to say, as we talk about marriage, it's important. It's not for everybody. Singleness is important as well. So, and I'm talking to single people, by the way, right there. I just want to make that clear because some of you are married and you're like, oh, okay, marriage isn't for everybody. That's all I needed to hear, I guess. I just want you to know, if like you're married, you already made that decision, all right? So you're already in it. And that just like goes to show that it's really important to make good decisions when it comes to marriage. But if you are married, we're going to talk about the upgrade. What does it mean to upgrade that relationship? And I want to share a few things from Pastor Jeff Jones that I heard recently. And usually when something like really lands with me, I'm like, man, this is like transformational. I'm like, okay, you need to hear this. How do we help everyone kind of grasp this? And so there's a phrase that he had. I want to show it to you that was kind of a definition of what marriage is. Here's what he said. He said, marriage is a promise to love one another as you grow in Jesus and build a shared future that reflects the character of Jesus. Now, If you're not a Christian, you probably have never heard this before. And by the way, we're really excited you're with us, tuning in with us. All right, and there's a few churchy phrases in here, and I'm going to explain them because anytime we use churchy phrases, like, okay, we got to explain those. All right, but if we're talking about an upgrade, then we actually have to go back to the originator, the person who designed this. Marriage is designed by God himself. We have to go back to the originator and say, okay, God who designed this, what was your intention for this? And even if you're a Jesus follower, all right, you still may not have heard some of what we're going to talk about here. Now, if I did your wedding or you've been to a wedding that I've done, you're going to know some of this stuff because like I build this into every single wedding and talk it through with every couple, all right? And so I want us to take a look at the foundations of a marriage covenant, the promises that make that up, and these are really what kind of the two things that make up a marriage relationship. And so we have to go all the way back to Genesis and we find this. Here's what it says in Genesis 2. It says, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. All right, now this is the promise or the covenant of loyalty right here. It could also be called the leave and cleave principle. All right, like I'm gonna leave my family of origin, you know, that's where I've been like most committed up to this point in my life. That's been my highest level of human commitment has been to my family of origin. And when I am joined to my spouse, every relationship from that day forward pales in comparison. I mean, I'm not talking a close second. Like even my family of origin is a distant, like pales in comparison to my loyalty to the one whom I chose to marry. That right there, that's the promise or the covenant of loyalty. Scripture writer goes on and says, and the two will become one flesh. And so right here, we see what's called the promise or the covenant of intimacy. And so this is what was once two, now is together as one. You know, more and more your stuff is my stuff, you know, more and more connected, less and less alone, more and more, you know, your dreams are my dreams. I mean, we're still ourselves, but like there's a merging of these lives. There's a oneness that begins to happen. And then the writer goes on and says, the man and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. Now, naked here is like a fascinating metaphor. Some of you are going, that's the part I'm getting to right there. That's where I want to get. And it does, the writer does mean a physical nakedness, but he also means a relational and a social and an emotional and a mental nakedness. This sense that like when I'm with my spouse, there's nothing between us. There's no cold shoulder. There's no, you know, like I'm holding, you know, the cards, you know, close to the vest. I mean, I'm not hiding anything. The writer says you can be open and honest and completely vulnerable with this person. And he says, guess what? It's okay. So those are the two covenants right there. We have the promise of loyalty or the covenant of loyalty and the covenant of intimacy. Now, really, really important distinction right here. This is a covenant, not a contract. All right, for a lot of us, we view this relationship, and this is where things have gotten really weird in our culture. As a contract, we say, well, as long as you hold up your end of the deal, I'm gonna stay in it, all right? But the moment you don't hold up your end of the deal, like I'm out, right? But that's a contract, that's not a covenant. Now, we all know contracts. I recently had to end a contract. I had a contract with a vendor that we'd been in a relationship for a number of years and had really good service. And all of a sudden, like things just didn't like go well last year. And so like we were like, well, like you didn't do your job that you said you were going to do in the contract. So we ended the contract. All right, we have a lot of contract vendor consumer relationships. Like when you go to the grocery store and pick out, you know your produce. You know, you might go to a certain store because you're like, man, they have amazing produce. Well, that's a vendor, you know, consumer relationship. That's a contractual relationship. Because the moment that produce goes down in quality, you go, man, I feel like I'm paying the same price, but I'm not getting like as good of goods. And you're like, I'm out of here. Like I'm gonna like, you know, take my business somewhere else because that's a contract type of relationship. God is saying, you know, hey, you know, marriage is not a contract, it's a covenant. In fact, all the way God works through the church, the way God works in relationship in the church and with human beings, it's all covenantal. Meaning that it's not conditional based on someone's performance, you know, whether they did their part or not. I mean, it's good when they do, right? Like it makes life better for everybody. But I made a promise, and the only condition is my character because I actually made it a covenant or a promise to you, a sacred promise. So Jesus one day picks up these verses we just read from Genesis, and he kind of repeats them, and the religious leaders come at him and they're kind of like trying to put him in a corner, and they're like, hey, Jesus, why did Moses say those things? I mean, if this is, you know, covenantal and it's supposed to last forever, they say, why did Jesus command that, you know, a man at times should, you know, be able to divorce his wife? And so, you know, they're trying to like pin him in a corner, but at the same time, Moses, he had to address this because part of why he made some provisions here was because women had no rights back in the first century and definitely not before then. Thank God we've made progress. But he's like, women shouldn't just be bound in a relationship where a man is in a relationship but like isn't fulfilling his end of the deal. And so here's actually, what happened here. Moses, Jesus says, made an accommodation. He didn't command anything. He actually made an accommodation. He actually allowed something, and Jesus tells us why he did this. Here's what he says. So he said to them, because of your hardness of heart. That's the reason. He said, because at one time your hearts were pliable and soft, you wanted to serve your spouse, but because your hearts get hard, Moses allowed or made a provision or an accommodation for you to divorce your wives. From the beginning, though, it was not so. And so basically Jesus is saying this is an accommodation because of our brokenness, because our hearts get hard. What once we just love to serve and put the needs of our spouse and the other person ahead of ourselves always. Hey, I don't care what I need. I'm going to put what you need in front. I'm always going to go to the back of the line. But over time, it's kind of like, okay, now I want you to take care of me. And how about my needs? and I'm the central figure here. And so our hearts over time get hard. And so we don't have time to do a deep dive on divorce. But there's another scripture that I'll just reference that the Apostle Paul picks up on this, where he says, those of us that live under grace, if we've entered into a relationship with Jesus and we live under grace, no longer the law. And he says, so those of us that live under grace, we actually owe it when somebody else violates us, even in a marriage, to give them the chance to change. Now, that doesn't mean if you're being abused or there's like emotional or physical abuse, you just need to stay in it. You probably need to get out of that immediately. But it does mean that like you work through a mediator, a counselor, a pastor, and say, okay, is there an opportunity to restore this? We actually owe that. All right, and so each of these cases are different, but these have to be navigated in community, and we won't get any deeper into that. But the point here is covenants have a staying power. Like those moments where like, well, I'm just ready to walk out. I don't feel it anymore. They have a staying power. I'm going to stay. That's where the magic of marriage begins to happen right there. And there's something good ahead, but sometimes I have to stay in it a bit, even longer than often we want to actually get to that point. There's a researcher by the name of John Gottman Institute. You may have heard of him. And they've done all this research over like 40 years of couples, hundreds, thousands of couples. And they tried to like isolate this a number of years ago and say what, the relationships that like flourish, what makes them flourish? And the relationships that are floundering, like what makes them flounder? And basically they came up with like 6 or 7 things that kind of rose to the top. But one of the things they found, that the top one, they said the best marriage is actually at the very top, have this right here. They have a staying power. There's a covenantal staying power. It's a willingness to stay in it, and even when it feels like, man, I'm not sure I want to stay in this. And I don't know why this whole idea, we think like two separate entities coming together to become one would just be easy. Oh, it's just gonna be fun. It's hard work. Like 2 people, 2 different ideas, personalities, levels of independence coming together. It's hard work. And so, and sometimes we need to look at this humorously, which I think might be good for us right now because this can get a little heavy. So Nate Bargatze, he shares some light on like marriage and some of its humorous moments and how we really struggle with this. And so you might be able to relate to this right here. Take a look.
She always tells me I don't listen. She's like, you don't listen. You never listen. I've heard that every time, but it's the other stuff. And I don't think I listen to everything, but I also don't think she says everything she thinks she says. There's just no way. 17 years of marriage, you're batting 1,000, I'm over. I've never heard anything.
Right? Like we can relate to that, right? Like, okay, it's hard coming together. But staying power is actually the thing that when you go through the discomforts and when you go through the conflict and the challenges, the thing that keeps us together. Now, marriage, it's not just that promise, all right, to stay together. I mean, that's the first part. Then the next part of this covenant, of this definition, is to love one another, all right, to love one another. All right, it's not just the promise to be with you, but it's saying, hey, like you're going to be my first allegiance. I'm going to put you above everything else, including myself. Now, in our culture, we often feel love as more of a feeling than a commitment, right? Like it's kind of like, well, I fell in love with her, and if I fell in love, I can fall out of love, right? And we say things like, well, I'm not compatible, which is a really fascinating thing because like we were compatible, but we're not anymore. A few years ago, this might be mind-blowing to some of us. A few years ago, I actually discovered what compatibility actually means, because we think it's like, oh, we get along really well and we never have a problem. Compatible actually is a fascinating word, because if you break it down, you take the prefix com, that means with, and if you take the root word, which is patable or pathos in Latin, that actually means to suffer. All right, and you put those together, you know what that means? Compatibility actually is to suffer with. Some of you go, well, that's what I'm doing right now. All right, that's kind of what we're doing. Well, you actually may be doing it right. All right, because it means it's not always going to be rosy. All right, the staying power actually suffers with one another through those difficult moments. That's why that cover song that the band did from Mumford & Sons was such a cool connect there, because it's just like, hey, when you fall down, listen, I'm not going away. I'm going to be there. Like there's a staying power. The very first church I served in when I was first in student ministry, Julie, my wife, and I were really young, right out of college, and newly married. And we got invited to go to a birthday party of a couple that had been married for 66 years. And he had retired, but he'd been the dean of the seminary, the school we went to, and so he was very well studied and theologically studied, and their name were Gene and Agnes. And there were about 100 people at this party, 66 years, that's a big deal. And so in the midst of this, they decided to ask them some questions, whoever was hosting. They said, hey, tell us, how'd you get here? What are some things we can learn from the two of you on your journey of 66 years? And they asked the question, they said, what's the key to 66 years of marriage? And some wisecrack, yelled out, hey, a happy wife is a happy life, right? And we've all heard that. And Gene was not a fan of that. He looked at the guy and shook his head. He's like, no, that's not it right there. And he was a very thoughtful person. He sat there and he thought for a moment. And then he said, this is, I think, the key to 66 years of marriage. He said, it's waking up every single day with the full awareness that we're two separate individuals and we can go our own separate ways, but it's choosing still 66 years later to go together as we approach today. That we're going to choose to go together. I thought, wow, that's worth money right there. Because see, in our culture, it's easy to go, well, yeah, it's a bummer. I don't feel it anymore. That's not love. That's something else. That's called romance. Romance is good, right? I'm all for romance. But Julie and I have been married a long time, and there's times we have romantic feelings, and I'm gonna be honest, there's times we don't. All right, but what we do have is a commitment to love one another. So see, the opposite of love, we often think it's hate. The opposite of love is not actually hate. The opposite of love is actually selfishness. And so love is when I say I'm not going to be selfish, I'm actually going to do the opposite. I'm going to be selfless, and I'm actually going to put, set myself aside to put the needs of the other ahead of myself. This is what Paul was talking about in 1 Corinthians, this passage we read at weddings all the time. Love is patient, love is kind. It's not self-seeking. It's not self-focused. It keeps no record of wrongs, doesn't keep a ledger. And then Paul goes on in one of his other letters, and he defines it this way. He says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. All right, and this is true of any relationship. This is the ethic right here. He says, rather in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of the others. And so what Paul's saying is love is actually setting myself aside. This is a guy, by the way, who was single his whole life. He said, it's setting my preferences, my comforts, my expectations of the other. I'm going to set all that aside, and I'm actually going to make a powerful choice to actually put the other person first all the time. I'm telling you, when there's a mutual, two people mutually do this, wow, that's a powerful thing right there. Every now and then, I meet with couples and I do some kind of what I would call crisis counseling. I'm not a therapist. You don't want me to be a therapist. I'm not trained that way, but I do meet with couples that are going through a difficult patch. And my main goal is to try to help them identify what are some things resources, counseling we can do to go forward. And one of the reasons that I'm not a good therapist counselor, one, I'm not trained in that, but my face has a hard time not showing what my mind is thinking. I don't know if you have this problem. And sometimes my mouth says it. And so I remember one time I was talking to husband and wife, and he came in and he was just reading all the things he does, and she does, she does 2%, but I pretty much carry 98% of it. And then she turned around and she started talking about how, here's all the stuff I do and he doesn't do anything. And I just kind of blurted out, I'm like, you guys are horrible. and I'm like, that is not what I should probably say in that moment. But I need to get their attention. And they kind of both looked up. It's like watching CNN and Fox News right next to each other. I'm like, you're talking about the same moment, but you have such different perspectives, and I think you're both wrong. I think the truth is actually somewhere in the middle. All right, they were just like, and it reminded me though that like when we come into those moments where there's tension, we all keep a scorecard. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like this is part of our broken, like sinful nature. We naturally, you can easily point out all the stuff I do and minimize the stuff the other person does, and then each person has their list. Which again, it's kind of not a funny moment, but Nate Bargatze actually has a little something funny to say on this as well, which might be helpful to us.
My mom did my dad's laundry growing up, so I thought all wives do husband's laundry. And I've always done my own. And to be honest, I felt it had been forgotten about over these past 17 years. The sacrifice I was making that other husbands didn't have to make. One day, I was like driving home, and it popped in my head, and I was like, all right, I'll bring that up. I mean, I didn't bring it up that day, I was like, I'm sure there will be a time where we'll be in some fight, I'll be losing this fight, and then I just come, I'm like, I do my own laundry. She's like, fight's over. You win, I forgot how good I got it.
Yeah, we know that never happens, right? That never works that way. You know what love actually says? Love actually calls us to flip the scorecard. Hey, you can do whatever you want to do, all right? Like it doesn't matter because I'm going to try to outlove you. All right, I'm going to pile up love on my part of the scorecard. I'm going to always try to race to the back of the line. All right, I'm not going to be first. And I'm telling you, when both people in a relationship do this, man, it's great. That's what love is. It's putting the other first. I think that's one of the reasons Jesus, talked about how important love is you're actually going to be able to tell the people that are following me by the way they love one another. And it's not easy. It's not easy to get there because it requires us to change. It requires transformation to get there, to become more and more reflective of who Jesus is and love more and more the way that he loves. Which is why this is kind of a third part of this upgrade. The next part of this is, for us to grow in Jesus, which is actually transformation. All right, because see, marriage isn't just about like, hey, how can I be more and more happy? All right, in fact, it's really not about that at all. It's actually about like, how can I become more and more like Jesus? In fact, all of our relationships are actually grounds for this. All right, this is how God shows up and actually grows us. But the unique thing about marriage is that, it's a unique one because it's kind of permanent and there's an intimacy. And so it creates this like great, like strong ground for transformation to actually happen. And there's actually a number of ways this can happen. For one, I don't know if you ever thought of it this way, but I want you to think of marriage being a mirror, and it helps you see the real you. Now, let's talk about mirrors for a moment. I don't go to gyms. I don't work out in a gym. I work out at home and outside. But I've been going to a gym recently because I've been going to like a physical therapist, and he has a gym, and I forgot how many mirrors are in there. Some of you go to like Lifetime and all these gyms, and you love the mirrors, right? You're like, get down, you're like want to see the bulges, come out, like, and you have a hard time getting your eyes off yourself in the mirrors, like you're just always looking, always like to be in the mirror. The other day I was in a physical therapy session, and I was supposed to be doing these squats, and my guy says, hey, I want you to watch yourself in the mirror. And I'm like, I don't like what I see right there. And who is that dad bod, right there, by the way? I don't like that body. That's what happens over time. And so, but mirrors actually tell the truth, right? Like they actually tell us the truth. And so, sometimes even the people you love won't tell you the full truth. Like you go out and you say, honey, does this look good on me? And you have to pause, right? You're like, do I want to sleep indoors tonight, or do I want to sleep outdoors tonight? And so, but mirrors, like mirrors, will scream at you. They'll be like, don't wear it, put it away. Because mirrors don't lie. They tell you the truth, right? So marriage is one of those relationships where we get reflected back to us. Like we see back how we're really doing. And when you think about it, you're in proximity to the people that are closest to you, right? And you get to gauge your spiritual maturity right there. We get to gauge our Christ likeness, right? A good place it's not a good place to gauge when you sit in the seats in church or, go to your small group. Like that's not a good setting, right? It's easy to kind of put on a show there. But like when you go home, are we kind? Are we patient? Like, are we self-serving or are we others-serving? Are we keeping records wrong? Are we keeping a scorecard? And this kind of displays our maturity. And over the years, I mean, I feel like I've done pretty well in other spaces, but man, I can go home at times and you know, I'll say something to Julie and she'll look at me and she'll be like, oh my gosh, that was like one of the most hurtful things. I'm like, I don't even know where that came from. I mean, God, like what happened? Why did I even think that? Why did I say that right there? You know, what's up with this? And so marriage just has a way of like helping you see the real you. And not only though is marriage a mirror for us, marriage also is a means of transformation. See, this is one of those relationships God can actually use to grow us into more and more Christ-likeness. All right, and that doesn't happen usually in the easy seasons. It's almost always in the difficult seasons, which is why I love the writer James in the New Testament, because he right off starts the bat talking to people who are struggling and suffering, and he's pretty much like, hey, it sucks, I'm so sorry you're going through what you're going through, but like this is part of what God uses to actually grow you, and this is actually true in any relationship. So when we go through conflict or we go through disappointment, that's actually what we would refer to as resistance training. Now, I have been doing some resistance training. I actually graduated from my therapy. I'm 8 weeks out of like having a knee replaced and, just graduated, and they're like, hey, you can go home and just do your therapy at home. You're doing weights now and resistance. And my therapist was like, hey, I can just send some stuff home with you. I mean, you're welcome to come in every 2 weeks if you want to, but I'm like, no, that's what I want to do. I want to come in every 2 weeks. And he looked at me, he's like, why do you want to do that? Like, you kind of know what you're doing. I said, well, I know myself. And what I know is if you give me a routine to go home and do, I'm going to choose the one that's the easiest. All right, like I'm just naturally gonna choose the one that has the path of least resistance because I know myself. And like some of these things I do, it's like a single leg squat on the knee that I just had repaired, and I'm supposed to like do it like 20 times. I know I only do it 5 times, but it's hard. But like, and I start sweating immediately. But I'm like, if I know I'm gonna come see you like in a couple weeks, you're gonna know I haven't been doing this, and I'm talking in front of a whole bunch of people about this as well. So like, I'm naturally gonna want to do it, right? So I need somebody in my life that's going to help me embrace the resistance. Right? Because that's how we grow. And it's weights, it's cardio, it's stretching ourselves. In fact, I want you to ask yourself a question. If you're feeling some of that right now in a relationship, I want you to ask yourself, what if we actually saw some of those moments of conflict and resistance as an opportunity? An opportunity for growth, an opportunity to say, okay, what is God wanting to teach me right here? All right, how can I grow in my understanding or grow to love better? Help me see what I'm supposed to do here, God. Or maybe it's through a season of disappointment or an opportunity to serve. And you're like, man, I really don't want to do this. I mean, this is the last thing I want to do, but I'm going to serve my spouse this way. Or because I want to not just like express more feelings of love. I actually want to put my love muscles on. I want to grow my love muscles. All right? I want to embrace the resistance. And I know for some of us right now, like that, life's hard. Like relationships are hard. In fact, you may even have a marriage that's hard, like period. Like it's just hard. And I hope it gets better. I really do. I hope it gets better. But I also want you to see that it's an opportunity. Or maybe you're just in a season where like you're in a rough, hard patch right now. Maybe it's saying, okay, I'm going to embrace this resistance because this is an opportunity to embrace transformation. Because see, again, God's goal isn't for us to be happy. I mean, it's great when that happens, but it's deeper than that. He has a purpose deeper than that. So back to our definition. Marriage is a promise. It's a covenant. To love one another, which is the love part. And as you grow in Jesus, the transformation part. And then here's the fourth part right here, that we build a shared future that reflects the character of Jesus, emulates who Jesus is. That's purpose right there. All right, and purpose is something that's bigger than ourselves. I mean, I think we'd all agree, regardless of where we are in our faith journey, that when I have purpose in my life, it's usually because I'm a part of something bigger than myself. Now, for those of us that are Jesus followers, I want to show us something. Jesus says, hey, here's one of your things I really want you to be focused on in life. He says this, he says, I want you to seek first my kingdom and righteousness. And he says, all these other things are going to be given to you as well. Now, let's be honest. You and I are really good at chasing all the other things, right? We like to chase all the things that give us security and wealth and a sense of like, happiness. And the problem is we go chasing those things, but most of those things aren't attainable. Right? And so Jesus is saying, hey, let me worry about those things. All right, if you just focus on knowing me, and if you focus on connecting with me and loving others, you just do that, like trust God. God's going to fill all the other stuff in around you. And so one of the ways that we are purposeful and grow closer to each other is actually by growing closer to God. Now, Julie and I, we've been married a long time. We're gonna be married 30 years this summer. I mean, that's crazy to me, right? I'm like, yeah, thank you. I'm like, how can I look 35 and be married 30 years? Now, I know I don't probably look 35, but that's what I feel like I look like, right? And so I just feel like it's been like such a long time. But when we first, I don't know if we learned this, we saw something right when we either got married or doing our premarital counseling. I don't know if it was with our therapist or not, but we saw this image right here. And, this was drawn out for us. And it's such a good image because it's very simple. And as you look at this, you have to remember, you have to just imagine like the girl's not as young as she looks, all right? Like we were young when we got married, but not that young right there. So there's a lot of ways to grow closer to God or to each other, but this image says, when you begin to grow closer to God, what actually happens is it draws you as a couple closer to one another. And that's really important, especially for Julie and I, because like we are pretty independent people. And we both are like wired to be independent, so it's easy for us, like railroad tracks, to just kind of go our own direction. It's easy for us to, we could go miles and really never like fully come together. And fortunately, because we're following Jesus and trying to emulate him, it's a good reminder like, hey, we're actually here to serve one another, and we're trying to outlove one another. And I'm so thankful she's been with me through some of my like less than stellar moments and vice versa. I mean, I've been through some of those with her. But see, this is part of the bigger purpose that draws us together. So I want us to kind of put all this together as we kind of think about, okay, what are we going to do as we think about these relationships in our lives? All right, because it's quite an upgrade. I know it might be a different upgrade than you came in thinking about this weekend, but if marriage is a promise and it's to love one another and you grow as you grow in Jesus and you build a shared future that reflects the character of Jesus, I just want you to think about, if you're single, I want you to think about a significant relationship right now. And if you're married, I want you to think about your spouse. And I want you to just ask yourself, which one of these four right here really stands out to you right now? Meaning like even starting this week, and again, this is where like if we can learn all this and hear this, and if we don't go out and do something about it, like we're not gonna grow at all. We're actually gonna feel like really frustrated. But like what is the thing perhaps God's nudging me to grow on this week? Maybe it's the first one, it's the promise part. And it's just resolving like, man, it's hard and I'm not sure I want to stay in it. I don't feel like I want to stay in it, but I'm gonna stay in it. It's resolving that for yourself and just saying, hey, I'm gonna stay in this thing. We're gonna continue to work through this. Or maybe it's the love others part. And I'm like, man, God, help me not be selfish because I'm just so selfish. Help me to actually love my spouse regardless of what they do or don't do. All right, help me to focus on that. Or maybe it's the transformation part. It's to embrace the resistance. Maybe you're in a patch that's just really rough right now, and you need to choose to say, okay, this is an opportunity to embrace the conflict. And maybe it's just asking God, what do you want to grow in me? What are you trying to change in me right here? And invite him into that. Or maybe it's the purpose part. Maybe it's taking steps to grow in your faith, because when we make God the center and we begin to go after God, God says, hey, go after me and I'll fill all the gaps in. Maybe it's that having a higher calling, a higher purpose part. So every single one of us, single, married, previously married, we have an opportunity to say, okay, God, what are you wanting me to take away from this right here? What are you surfacing for me right now? So I just want you to ask yourself that. Some of our next steps this weekend are directly tied to that. I want you to just consider, okay, what am I going to go do? What am I going to put into practice this week? There's some on the back of your card, digital online card, if those are helpful. And then we're going to invite God into that. Now, before we do that, I just want to lift out real quick this whole covenant relationship thing between a husband and wife. This actually mirrors the way God talks about how he relates to us. In fact, the Apostle Paul, he actually talks about in Ephesians how this is reflective of God's relationship with us, meaning when we begin a relationship with God through Jesus, it's almost like when Jesus comes to us and say, hey, I've given you an invitation. I want to know if you'll walk with me, if you'll journey with me, if you'll follow me. When we receive that invitation and we say yes, it's like game over. It's like he's not leaving. It's covenantal. It doesn't matter what you do. It's not based on your performance. Everything that he brings, he offers, and all his goodness comes to us. Which is why this is good news. That's why the gospel is good news, which I just want to, pause and give us an opportunity, because some of us, that might be one of the first steps we need to make, as we think about what God's doing in our hearts right now, what's surfacing. In fact, I want to invite you to pray with us. Just pray with me. Let's just close our eyes. And as we do that, I just want to encourage you, if you're somebody who's never began that relationship, and maybe God's just nudging you and giving you that invitation, and Jesus is saying, hey, it's always the same. Hey, let's do this. Let's walk together. Let's journey together. and you've never received that, maybe today's the day where you say, okay, Jesus, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to begin to follow you. I'm going to begin to receive your goodness and grace. And I just want you to know that if you're receiving and making that decision right now, that starts right now. It never stops. It'll never stop. And I know there's going to be some growth and change. And God, I'm going to ask that you just bring that about in us. But God, thank you for that first step, always just being saying yes. And then you being committed to us from here on out. And as we think about our key relationships, or perhaps our marriage, what is it God wants you to take away this weekend? All right? Is it a promise? Is it getting rid of some unselfishness? Is it embracing resistance? Maybe, saying, okay, we're going to go harder after God so we can draw closer together. Whatever it is, God, give us the ability and the strength to do that. Lord, thank you so much for caring about this part of our lives and inviting us and loving us in the same way and helping us experience it. And thank you for your patience with us as well. Help us to build on you, because we know that's a firm place to be. It's a secure place, because you'll never let go. You'll never give up on us. And we just thank you for that. And we want to reflect that. And we pray these things in your name, Jesus. Amen. Hey, let's go ahead and stand. The band's got one more song. We're going to sing this together.
Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaken. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations.
for watching. All right, before we go, if you've got something going on in your life, something you've been carrying or something you're facing, and you'd like some prayer to help you navigate that, we'd love to pray with you today. Simply text the keyword "need prayer" to 317-834-7373, and our prayer team will reach out to you later today. And for those of you who are givers, we want to say thank you. Thank you for fueling the real change and the real stories God continues to write into the lives of real people. None of this happens without your generosity through the Joy Box. And if you're not a giver and you'd like to become one, you can donate at this QR code or through the Give button, and know that your gifts fuel all the goodness that comes out of this place, including this online broadcast. So thank you. That's it. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time for the final installment of Navigating Us.
Christ is my firm foundation.